Remember those congressional hearings last fall where politicians berated CEOs for flying in on their corporate private jets? Well, guess what? The politicians themselves just bought about $200 million worth of private jets with your tax dollars. These are corporate jets to fly themselves and their families to junkets all over the world. Now, the country may be in tough economic times, but that doesn't stop lawmakers from cutting back on some of their big-time luxuries. The House has authorized the purchase of these jets for some $500 million. Excuse us. Let us look at what you're buying now, because you are the ones who are buying this. This is a Boeing C-40, which cost about $100 million each. The Gulfstream 5 cost about $66 million a pop, and the Gulfstream 550, another $65 million per aircraft. Now, didn't Congress ever hear of traveling coach? Here to score it all for us is Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch, which first discovered this extravagance. Now, Tom, I've heard different figures, and we even made mistakes in the intro. It's going to be $500 million, What's the final figure here?
Well, it's about $500 million, which I think is about $250 million more than the military wanted. They wanted to replace a few of these executive-style jets. But Congress gave them more than they asked for.
Now, let's just describe what we're talking about here, at least with regard to the C-40, which is also kind of like a 737. They're all first-class seats, right? They're all leather first-class seats. You've got work tables. Right. You have two large galleys. Presumably, there'll be a couple of private chefs in there as well to dish up some good food. And distinguished visitor compartments have sleep accommodations as well. I mean, these are fancy planes.
Well, these are Air Force One style planes, frankly. And, we're not asking members of Congress to take Afghan Air into the middle of Afghanistan. If they're going to a war zone, that's fine. Use a military transport. But they don't need these jets to go into Germany. They only need them because they want to bring their spouses, frankly. And there's a number of trips scheduled for Germany, for instance. Many of these members take these trips to the Middle East, which by and large are perfectly safe to travel to via commercial means. So this is a huge extravagance, and I'm sure it's great fun to travel on these corporate jets. I haven't been on one. I'm sure it's great, but they're public servants, and they need to be a little more careful. And this is
nonpartisan, folks. I mean, we're not just talking about Democrats or Republicans. Richard Shelby, Republican from Alabama, has taken a group of senators and their wives to Europe for 3 weeks, a 3-week vacation to Europe with your spouse. House Minority Leader John Boehner of Ohio, another Republican, is leading 5 lawmakers on a trip around the world. These are huge extravagances, and we should mention, Tom, that we have increased, or Congress has increased by tenfold since 1985, their expenses for these trips.
Well, the documents we uncovered showed that under Pelosi's reign, there was great pressure on the military to make these jets available for members of Congress, and woe to the military officials who didn't have the jets available for these congressional delegations. They were excoriated by the Speaker's office. So there's no new day in Washington when it comes to the abuse of office, frankly, and the abuse of the military in terms of treating it like their own taxi cab service.
And Tracy, beyond the outrage of the expense itself is the hypocrisy of the thing. These are the same people that berated corporate people from using private jets, and they weren't using our money. They use our tax money to buy their own corporate jets.
Yeah, you just got to wonder where the PR people are through this whole thing. It's not the time. I'm all for it. You need a corporate jet on occasion,
they don't
fine.
Care. Tracy,
but do you need a new one?
They don't care. I mean, that's the bottom line here. They feel so entitled to all of this stuff.
The rule should be, don't do anything you wouldn't want to appear on the front page of the New York Post.
Toby, our sense of entitlement is, maybe another $5 for a poor person with food stamps. Their sense of entitlement is, we need another corporate jet with all first-class seats.
Well, also look at the judgment. This is the same group that wants to, manage our healthcare system. And look at the judgment they're showing. Look, David, if I'm taking you to a golf trip in Scotland and I can afford it, I would lease a jet. It would cost me about $25,000.
When are we going?
Yeah, it would be a great trip, but there would be a business reason to do it. Or I would compare that against flying first class. The only argument you could make here is security.
Right.
The only argument you can make is security, and what they're saying is that by putting these officials on a plane with civilians, they're putting
But
civilians
that's
at
not the
risk.
point. Then that's not the
Hold
point.
on,
They
hold
don't
on,
have
hold on.
these
Go ahead,
corporate jets.
Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
You know, we saw an email where the military suggested, we don't have the military jets. How about commercial? And the House officials' response was, well, that's fine, but you know how that gets with the spouses. This is not about security.
Man. Oh,
Hey, baby,
God,
what's your
they
name?
admit it. They
But
admit
here's
it,
the
Tracy.
thing.
They have no shame. Zero shame.
Well, and you're absolutely right about that. Because look, I bet you we can go down there and find a bunch of these jets that are sitting there waiting to be used.
Sure.
You don't need new ones
No.
right now in the midst of all
And this
this.
doesn't include the jet fuel and the maintenance.
That's
and all the
correct.
rest of it,
That's
and the
right.
crew.
That's right.
It's just
But
even more.
buying them, it's just the audacity, to your point, of buying these things.
Right
Well,
now.
number one,
Right now.
They're selling for 50% lower than they ever did, number one. Number two, if you have to use one, if there is a security reason to use it, you lease it. And what they're afraid of is what that bill will look like. And then when they buy it, the bill never gets in. If the Air
Toby,
Force
don't
supplies it-
tell me there are not corporate jets down there that
I
they
just
could
said- I
use.
just
Of course
said
there
that.
are.
I just
Tom,
said
They don't
Tom,
have to lease
final
them. They
question.
own them.
Is there any way we can get a list of who voted on this issue, one way or the other?
Oh, I don't know. I presume that's available as one of these votes, I'm sure, that was generally agreed to, and everyone will say they didn't know they were voting on it. I think the Senate may stop it. Claire McCaskill, who's a Democrat, has said, she wants no part of this, and she'll likely cut it out.
Good for her.
Good for her.
Tom Fitton, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention from Judicial Watch. We appreciate it. And text us your take. Now that you know the deal, Congress buying these new private planes. Is there anyone out there who thinks this is a buy? We're going to put it up to your opinion nevertheless. If you feel strongly about this, as I'm sure you do, is it a buy, a sell, or a hold? Text us your message at 369-249. Meanwhile, a group of smart